Welcome everyone, thank you so much for joining. These lunch and learn sessions are meant to be kind of value packed, nice and short, to give you some time back as well. So today's topic, super popular, Alex and I were saying, hearing it a lot, not only from a client perspective, but also when I'm speaking with prospective clients all the time. It's really how do we engage line managers and support them to own engagement at that local level and to drive action post survey. So Alex, I'll let you lead.
Yeah, thanks Lucy, and thanks everyone for joining us. Appreciate it. As Lucy mentioned, this is a lunch and learns. The whole idea is we cram a load of stuff into the half an hour. So I will whiz through fairly quickly, but please do jump in and write questions on the chat, and Lucy will pick them up. Can speak on your behalf and ask questions as we go through. The whole idea is this is very practical, so hopefully lots of value add there for you as we go through. In terms of today's topic, so this is supporting line managers to drive action post survey. So as Lucy mentioned, it's a conversation we're having with a lot of organisations at the moment. How do we do this? So hopefully it's going to be really beneficial to you. To start off with, hopefully you can see that slide okay. Just wanted to put this piece in there, which we actually normally talk about when we do coaching sessions with our clients, which is a knowing, doing, being piece. So as we go through the content today, just to say, look, a lot of this you're probably already going to know. A lot of it isn't rocket science, but then the question for you is, are you doing it? And then if you're doing it, then are you really being it? And what we talk about that with line managers, which is why it's important to this topic here, is they know, for example, they need to have a conversation with their team members. They're doing it, but are they really being it in the day-to-day? And that's someone that's open to conversation, someone that's asking questions, wanting to collaborate with lots of different people as well. And so ask yourself as I go through this content, yes, you might know it, but really are you doing it? And therefore, are you really being it as well as we go through? Another thing we talk about is common sense versus common practice. So common sense is 5 fruit and veg a day, 8 hours sleep a night, drink X number of litres of water each day. Lots of us know that, but how many of us actually do it as well? So a bit of a challenge there up front for all of us as we go through. In terms of the content for the session today, there are 3 key things we're going to look at. Number 1 is why are line managers essential for driving action? This is kind of the business case. We'll start by looking at why is action important, and then why is line managers taking action also important. Then we're going to actually look at the line manager role within the post-survey process. So what does their role look like and what are the key things that they do throughout? And then third and final thing we thought would be really useful for sharing with you the 3 common reasons why line managers don't engage post-survey, and then some of the ideas we have around how you overcome those as well. I'm sure you'll resonate with many of those in that final section there as well. So we're going to get started with the first section then. So why is taking action so important? So starting big picture. So we've got our data on the right-hand side there that shows 49% of people believe that action will be taken off the back of the survey results. So that's 50%, just over half, believe that action won't be taken off the back of the survey. How does that then affect engagement? We can see the correlation there below that. So for people that do believe action will be taken, there's an 86% engagement index. And for those that do not believe, there's a 47% engagement index score. So we can see then, not only do we know that over half of people don't believe action is being taken, but we know that them not believing action being taken is having a significant impact on how engaged they are at the organisation. Within that context then, we look at why are line managers essential for taking action. So again, I'm probably preaching this converted here, but we know the power of surveys is not in collecting the data, it's actually taking the action off the back of the survey. This for us has been the biggest challenge for a lot of organisations we work with over the last 18 months to 2 years. The first kind of 7 years before that, a lot of organisations we were working with was about building up the whole measurement side of things. So collecting the right data, asking the right questions and frequency. Now, a lot of organisations are already kind of bought into that. And you might see that with your conversations internally, actually. A lot of the challenges you're having with your exec isn't around them buying into actually collecting the data. A lot of them are interested in getting the data, but it's actually seeing action being taken off of that. And we know for those that are sharing their feedback in the survey, it's not enough just for them to know that their data is being captured, but actually they want to see action being taken off the back of that. And line managers are essential to this. And why are they essential? Point number 2 there, actions taken at a local level affect the felt experience of colleagues in their day-to-day work. So when we work with organisations to take action, there's often 2 levels to this. There's the strategic level, which is very much at the kind of exec or company-wide level, which would be really around like vision, communication, strategy, etc. But then there's this second level, which is the local level, which is much more around communication at a local level, autonomy, people feeling connected to other colleagues. And obviously the line manager is a key part of that as well. And often when we look at the survey results, a lot of the feedback that people give, particularly to the emotions question, which is how do you feel about working here and then why, in their free text comments, a lot of them refer to actually things that happen at a local level. And so it's not just good enough for the exec to come up with 3 actions, at strategic level, actually to really influence the day-to-day experience of their colleagues, action needs to be taken at that local line manager level as well.
And just to give an example on that, Alex, because lots of people might not be too familiar with our approach. Some of you will know we have a unique focus. In addition to your engagement index and other indices, we also have the addition of the emotional analytics. How do you feel about working at organisation and why? Now, the benefit of that to an organisation, but actually to a manager at a local level, is we're not just giving them their engagement index 63.12. We're also able to tell them actually 54% of your team feel irritated and it's due to lack of communication and workload. So the addition of the emotions is giving them what we call more meaningful and human data to take action on as well.
Yeah, definitely. Third and final one then that links to Lucy's point, that is around these quick wins and incremental changes are much easier to do at a local level. So let me give you an example of this. So we work with a transport company here in the UK, and they undertook a survey with us. And always the fear that exec have when they take a survey when it comes to recommended actions is you're going to want us to roll out a multi-million-pound program in order to address the issues, which, you know, we know the wider context we're all working and operating at the moment. Finances are tight and budgets are often being cut or limited. So therefore, there isn't the resource or the financial backing to be able to do that. The good news is actually probably 75% of the changes or actions that need to take place are these quick wins or incremental changes. So that doesn't mean something's going to change immediately overnight or even between 2 surveys, but it's over a period of time of multiple surveys, which is why whole surveying is really important, that you're starting to make these changes and check in on the change that's been taking place. So this transport company in the UK, they undertook a survey, and what came through really clearly is that drivers were really annoyed that there wasn't a coffee machine available in their breakout room or their break room. And so therefore they would have to go and pay a coffee machine to get coffee between shifts, or when they're out and about, they'd have to do it as well. And so what they did is they introduced these coffee machines in the break rooms, and it had a massive effect on engagement at that local level with the driver population. That small incremental change, which didn't cost them a lot of money, actually had a massive impact on engagement. So that's just one quick example of a quick win or incremental change you can make. Fourth piece is, don't just take it from us. Gallup, you may have seen, release their statement, State of the Global Workplace report last few weeks. They talk about the manager as the linchpin of engagement. 70% of team engagement is attributable to the manager. So we know they're important when it comes to engaging with our people. We know that when it comes to engagement, it's not just good enough to collect the data. Action has to be taken off the back of that. Final thing, which we don't have time, we could do a whole webinar on this, which we're not going to have time to do today, but just to show that it isn't just about ensuring that line managers are involved or engaged in the post-survey approach. It's actually really important that your line managers and your leaders are also engaged. And we can see here there's a strong correlation, as you can see there, between the non-manager engagement index, so those that aren't in management positions, and senior leader engagement index shows that as you increase the engagement of senior leaders, so does the engagement of your overall population. And so just to say there, it is as important, not just getting them involved in the post-survey approach, but actually engaging your leaders and your line managers as well. So let's move on to the second section, which is looking then at what does this mean practically? If we're going to engage our line managers in the post-survey approach, I want them to play a key part. What does that actually look like practically? And so there's 3 key things here. What I will say on this is keeping it as simple and intuitive as possible is really, really important. And so we know line managers have a lot on their plate already. We know workload is a massive issue globally at the moment. People do not have time. And so when we come with this process here, the whole idea is that it's simple and intuitive. We're not looking to add massive extensive action plans onto their plate, but actually something that feels very natural, that they can fit into their already ongoing rhythm and how they work and their meetings with their team members. So the first thing around how do they play their part is, number 1, interpret their team survey results. So it's important, obviously, that they've read the results. Not only that, but actually they start to interpret them. And so they put them within their context of their team. So for example, one thing that might come up, Lucy mentioned, obviously, the emotions question earlier. We might find out that 25% of our people are feeling anxious. And the reason behind that are around the ongoing changes. Well, the line manager can put that into the context of what's happening within their team and can talk about that and with the team. So it's important that they personally interpret their team results. Not only that, but when they then come to talk to their team about the results, they're confident being able to talk about the results, but they're also able to give their own personal reflection on the results as well, showing that they're invested in this, they're bought into this because they've taken the time to look at the results. So that's the first thing. Again, seemed very obvious. Rocket science, it's not rocket science. People need to actually interpret survey results. Again, we would position that of how many line managers, leaders actually do that. Second thing then is facilitate a conversation with their team about the results and agree actions. This is a key shift for us in terms of the Inpulse approach. Again, within the context of line managers are feeling very overworked at the moment, they've got really high workloads. Often what then happens with the majority of line managers is they will prioritize the operational side of things over the people side of things. So I need to ensure that systems, processes, etc., continue to be efficient. I'm less bothered about whether my people are happy at work at the moment. Typically, that's where line managers will be. So we're not looking to add in, again, a massive extensive action plan. What we want them to do, though, is to use the results to facilitate a conversation with their team. Now, depending on the maturity of your organization, the maturity of your line managers, that may look different depending on that maturity or the context you're working in. But really, the whole idea behind this is that they are going with the results and they facilitate conversation. So they're not coming up with all the actions themselves, but they're giving people an opportunity to share their feedback, delve deeper into the results. The whole idea behind this then is it links to that incremental changes piece rather than massive action plan, which is I can identify the severity of the issues that have been raised within that conversation, and we can agree as a collective, collaboratively, what are some of the things that we can do then to address that. So that's the conversation. In terms of where you're at as an organization, we work with a lot of our clients around this in terms of ensuring people understand expectations around their role, so what's expected of them in the conversation as a line manager. And secondly, they feel equipped to have the conversation. So we'll do like coaching sessions, whether that's online, whether that's in person, to help people have that conversation. The third and final piece then is after that conversation, they should be ensuring there's accountability for local level action. This is really, really important because depending on where you are in the maturity in terms of your engagement journey, most organizations now give their managers access to the results, whether it's a report or whether it's access to the platform to interpret the results. Not so many, very few, in fact, less than half, we would say from our experience, actually have the conversation with their team about the results. Even fewer actually continue off the back of that conversation, ensure there's accountability in this ongoing check-in on progress. So this is really, really important, not just on the line manager side of things, but also for you, if you're a central team, whether you're a business partner, whether you're a central team that supports line managers, to ensure there is that ongoing accountability. So checking in on what is the progress of actions that have been agreed and been taken. Are the actions still appropriate and relevant, or do we need to change them? Are we ensuring that there's going to be changes and actions taken between now and the next survey to show that we're progressing as well? So that accountability is really important, whether that is the line manager or whether that's the business partner for that area. Someone needs to take ownership of that. Ideally, because we're focusing on the line manager, it would be the line manager. But as I say, depending on your maturity, business partner might support that as well. I'm just going to pause there for a second, Lucy, and just check if there have been any questions about any of this before we move on.
Not yet. So I've answered a couple that are just private ones. Please, if anyone else has any questions for Alex on any of this content, pop it in the chat and we will pick it up.
Perfect. So the whole idea why this section here in terms of the process is simple is because we want it to feed into the day-to-day work of our line managers. And so typically, depending on your organization, most line managers will have either weekly, daily, monthly team meetings or conversations with their team members. This should fit into their weekly or monthly or daily rhythm, where they can then use the survey results and have that conversation as part of their already normal team meeting. And then the accountability fits into that ongoing rhythm by them checking in on their team meetings, weekly meetings, monthly meetings, etc. So again, it's really important when you think about this post-survey process, how are you fitting in to their already day-to-day rhythms or weekly rhythms, etc. So we're not adding on more workload to them or adding on more processes for them. That's going to really help when you get their buy-in to the process. And also when you look at this, look at how can you support each of these three stages. So interpreting their survey results one thing we would advise is, and that you can get from the Inpulse platform directly, is sharing a report that has with them a summary of their results, but also some prompting questions for them to explore the results personally for themselves, but then when they think about their team as well. So think about how you can offer resources and support at that level there. Then facilitating the conversation. As I mentioned, we will run coaching sessions with organizations. You might have your own resources or team internally, whether that's the business partner or the central team that can support them with having the conversation. What does that look like? It might be a guide on a structure, like an outline plan of the conversation. It might be prepping for difficult conversations that might arise. It might be dealing with difficult people in their team that they're anticipating. Whatever the barriers are you think that are going to prevent them from having the conversation, that's where you need to support them. And third and finally, that accountability piece is really important. So what does that look like practically? That, for example, a thing that a lot of our clients use, it will be a month after the survey is closed, they've had access to the results. You put in a meeting with them, whether that's a one-to-one meeting with the line manager or whether it's a group meeting with lots of line managers, and you say, hey, at this point, we're going to share what's the actions that we've taken off the back of the survey. We're going to collaborate and share ideas and check in on progress off the back of that as well. Final piece then, got about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes, want to leave room either for you to get a drink at the end, go to the toilet or ask questions. So third and final piece is around what are some common reasons why line managers don't engage post-survey. To say at this point here, these don't cover all of the common reasons, but these are the 3 most common reasons that we see. I'm sure you'll resonate with some of these. If you do, please say in the chat, write in there your experience and we can comment on those as well. So third and final piece then, what are the challenges? Challenge number 1, which comes up the most, is not enough time. There's too many other priorities. So line managers will often say, look, we're already overworked. I've already got too much on my plate. I don't have capacity. I don't have resource. I don't have time to be able to either interpret my results or actually have the conversation with my team. So what's the solution? The whole idea behind this is we're avoiding that extensive action plan, position it as a conversation. And that's really important when you talk to the line managers internally, that you are positioning it as a conversation. This may not lead to massive changes in our area of the business, but it's an opportunity for us to get together as a team, discuss the issues that arose, reflect on them and collaborate to come up with actions ourselves. Again, the manager is not expected to come up with all the ideas off the back of this. Actually, what you really want is people to come up, other team members to come up with the actions, because then they're going to take more ownership because they've come up with them. But also we know it's really going to address the issues that they've risen because they're the ones that have shared the issues. So they're obviously going to have some ideas of how to resolve that. So avoid talking about it as an extensive action plan. Talk about just focusing on that conversation. Again, as I talked about before, that's feeding into their already weekly, monthly rhythm of team meetings and conversations. The next one is another big one, which I don't feel equipped. So typically what we'll see with organizations we work with is line managers will be promoted to a position of management or leadership based on their expertise within that certain field, whether it's transport, manufacturing, construction, etc. Whatever that looks like, typically they've been promoted because of their expertise in that area. So they don't necessarily have the leadership skills or human skills we would talk about to be able to engage their people and take post-survey action. And so we need to equip them to do that. And so solutions to that is provide training and support to line managers. Now, your context will look different depending on the organization you work with. So, for example, transport organizations we work with, they don't get a lot of time with their line managers or their drivers to be able to do this. So how can they best support those that are on shift patterns, for example, with the training that they need? The other side of things is if you've got people that are predominantly in the office, it's much easier to do that. So you might be able to do more in-person coaching sessions or training sessions with them. If you've got a global organization, which many of the companies you work with are, you won't be able to get everyone in a room. So how you facilitate that across those areas. What we find from our experience is really, really important in the training is, number one, make it as easy for them as possible. So the least amount of work the manager can do, the better. So we provide reports, which we call precision, which basically gives line managers a narrative for their results, one key focus and one key action for them to take. So they're going in really clear on the narrative of their results summarized for them. And then here's where I need to focus and here's the action I can take. Take that to the team as a proposition and talk around that as well. So it's doing a lot of the hard work for them. Another thing we do is, obviously I mentioned the coaching sessions as well, opportunity for us to coach them through having the conversation, but also for them to ask questions as well and practice with each other. The third and final one is, I don't think it will lead to any meaningful change. So what's the point in me having a conversation with my team and coming up with actions, because it's not going to make a massive difference on the wider piece. This really sits with senior leadership, being honest with you, them role modeling the actions being taken and communicating their commitment. So what does that look like? That looks like, after the survey is closed, within those 2 weeks straight after, the senior leadership team getting together, talking about the results at a high level and what are 1, 2, or 3 key actions they're going to take off the back of this focus areas, and then communicating that back to people, not just via an email, not via written communications on the internet, but verbally, either whether that's in person or virtually, to talk that through in a video or a webinar, for example, but sharing that. The second thing is communicating their commitment. And this is where interpreting the results comes in. We talked about a line manager level, which is I need to be able to share my personal commitment by playing back what I've seen, my reflections on the results, but also reinforcing our commitment to taking action off the back of that. So that would look like, look, we can see that 25% of our people are feeling anxious about the changes. We appreciate we may not have been clear with you of what's going to happen over the next 6 months, but in a month's time, we're going to come up with a really clear plan of what that's going to look like for the organization, but also at a local level for each team, what that's going to look like. Communication like that has a massive, massive impact. You're not necessarily expected to take the action immediately, but acknowledging it and sharing that commitment is really important, so people know that it's been acknowledged and action is going to be taken off the back of that. When it comes to senior leadership and line managers, I go back to the point that we raised at the start, which is knowing, doing, being. With senior leadership, how they talk about the survey and how they are, who they're being when they talk about it is really, really important. So if they reluctantly say, look, thanks for your comments and responses, really disappointed with how they've appeared and how everyone's feeling, we're going to have a look at this. The way I talk about that shows that I'm not really enthusiastic. Whereas if you come with higher levels of energy, whether you're actually taking the time to really not be defensive, but be open and listening to people, sharing the feedback, it's going to make a massive difference as well around that. So they're the 3 key challenges. Any other challenges anyone's come up against, please do write in the chat and we can refer to those. Purposely left 5 minutes at the end in case there are any questions. Lucy, I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, great. We do have a question. You probably covered lots of it actually in that third point there, but Sam, thank you so much. Your question is, following our last survey, we encouraged action planning at 3 levels, organisation, dictorate, so the business area, and then team level, which is the line manager. And we have struggled to get dictorate management teams to come up with a concise plan for various reasons. Would you suggest that organisational level and line management is enough?
Yeah, great question, Sam. It's difficult because of different contexts in different organisations without knowing like what the directorate level is in terms of how many people they're responsible for and how many teams. But yeah, from our experience, breaking it down by 2 levels, so strategic and then local level, is really, really important. Again, the whole idea behind this taking action piece is keep it really simple and as easy as possible. When we overcomplicate it and make it really complex, that's when people get overwhelmed and they don't do anything, or they don't have the time or energy for it. So we have seen, yeah, organizational, strategic, which should be driven by your senior leadership team or your exec team, and then that local level, typically that would be line manager. Now, what you might want to do, bear in mind, again, keeping it at that 2 level, is depending on the maturity of your line managers, it might be that the local level is initially driven by the directorate because they're going to role model and show what action needs to be taken. They might even have conversations with the line managers to start off with, and then it would go down to that local line manager level as well. But yeah, we would advise keeping it to 2 levels, keep it as simple as possible.
Great, thanks, Alex. Good. If there's any other questions, please do submit them. If you think about something and you want to ask Alex or I afterwards, then you will have my email by now, I'm sure. Other than that, we'll keep you posted with the next webinar, so please do keep an eye out for that. And we hope you have a lovely afternoon.